we're going, got it. We are recording this meeting, and we are going to start off with Danny just going briefly over our value statements. So Danny, take it away.
Okay, cool. So just a little background before I read our values. This is a process that took place a long time ago. I think I heard about 12 years back. So this is something that started where we just started to name our church's values and which guide our decision making. And those are our, let's see if I can find, there we go. Biblical faithfulness, formational community, spiritual engagement, holistic mission, teamwork, and Christian freedom.
We will, at the end of our time together, there's going to be a link of, yeah, good. Thanks, John. That's our agenda for today. So you get a sense of how things are going to go. And at the end of our time, there's going to be a document where it's going to have links to everything that we're going to be showing you or talking about. Okay, John, you can take us off screen share, please. Thank you. All right. So speaking of what we value, it is Pastor Appreciation Month. And we value our pastors and our staff who are pastors. Thank you, Pastor Mandy and Troy and Betsy, for your humble, diligent, and faithful service, and for your heart for God, for people, and for God's mission. We love you. And where's Troy anyway? Oops, is Troy here? There you are, Troy. And is Betsy here? And I just want to please receive a token of our appreciation and love for you. And Pastor Mandy, can you pass that on to Betsy? Because
I sure will. Yeah. Thank you all very much. We appreciate you.
Yes. And we love and appreciate you so much. All right. Yay. Yay. Okay.
That wasn't in the agenda, I'd like to point out.
No, I guess I forgot about that. Sorry. All right. We are going to move into our update on the topic of our gathering rhythms. We have had numerous opportunities in small groups and large groups and in individual conversations to talk and listen about this topic in the last month and a half. I have really appreciated hearing from many of you regarding your thoughts, concerns, ideas, hopes, and joys about our current gathering rhythms, as well as how we want our future to look like together. There will be more conversations. Please keep talking to each other, and more opportunities for your feedback. But today, I want to take a few minutes to share a little of what I'm hearing and to check in with you all. So the song and tweet that I'm about to show represent for me, the spectrum of what I and council have been hearing lately. When I first encountered both of these recently on separate occasions, I thought, wow, people really love the church. And wow, some people see church very differently. And by the way, these examples were the ones that I picked out these examples, so don't blame council if you don't like them, just blame me. Okay, so John Boyd is our tech master today. Thank you so much, John Boyd. And I would like John to play the song that I found. I just heard this recently, so it might be not new to some of you, but it was new to me. So go ahead, John.
There was a time that I swore I would never go back. I was blind to the truth, didn't know what I had. I was running, I was searching, but every place I turned for healing left me more broken than the last. Take me back to the place that feels like home, to the people I can depend on, to the faith that's in my bones. Take me back to a preacher and a verse where they've seen me at my worst, to the love I had at first. Oh, I wanna go to church. Trying to walk on my own, but I'm wound up lost. Now I'm making my way to the foot of the cross. It's not a trophy for the winners, it's a shelter for the sinners, and it's right where I belong. Take me back to the place that feels like home, to the people I can depend on, to the faith that's in my bones. Take me back to a preacher and a verse where they've seen me at my worst, to the love I had at first. Oh, I wanna go to church. I wanna go to church. Oh, more than an obligation, it's our foundation, the family of God. I know it's hard, but we need each other. We're sisters and brothers. Oh, take me back to the place that feels like home, to the people I can depend on, to the faith that's in my bones. Take me back to a preacher and a verse where they've seen me at my worst, to the love I had at first. Oh, I wanna go to church. Yeah, I wanna go to church. Oh, I wanna go, wanna go, wanna go. Oh, I wanna go to church. Oh, I wanna go to church.
All right. Thank you, John. That song, when I looked it up, if you look at the thread underneath it, you know how you go on YouTube and you see like a lot of comments, like there were people that were like, this saved my life. Like this song, I lost hope, I needed church, and I don't know, it was just, it touched so many people's lives, and it was just awesome to see. Now, this next thing that I'm going to show you in just a second is a tweet that I recently saw, and I didn't put in the full conversation, but you'll get a link to it later if you want to see the full conversation, but this is the gist of it. And to give you some background, Brad Briscoe is the director of bivocational church planting for the North American Mission Board. He holds a doctorate in the area of missional ecclesiology. His doctoral thesis was on assisting existing congregations in transitioning in a missional direction. He and his wife have 3 children and have been foster parents to more than 50 other kids. So, John, will you please show that tweet? And this is a conversation that was going on with Brad and a few other people. And this is what it says. I know this will be controversial to some, but the solution for what ails the church in North America is not more preaching. It is the recapturing of the missionary nature of the church and the empowerment of the priesthood of all believers. And Ken Snyder says, without trying to be rude, it seems that anyone who would see this as controversial misunderstands the essence of the church. As Leslie Newbegin says, we have corrupted the word church by constantly using it in a non-missionary sense. Brad says, Ken, yes, I agree with your comments, but unfortunately, there are some, perhaps many, who think or at least behave like preaching is the organizing principle of the church. All right, thank you, John. You can stop sharing. So now this is just a tiny, tiny, tiny taste of the beliefs and convictions that are out there. So I thought it's such a good reminder for me and us to remember that there is a spectrum of strongly held beliefs from opposite ends of the spectrum to everything in between. It's also a good reminder that we are not alone in this. Like the differences in our church, we're totally not alone. My guess is all of these folks, from the people who wrote the song and who commented on the song and the folks who were part of this tweet, they think that they are committed, loving, Bible-believing, God-seeking Christians who also think they are hearing from God. These differences within the body of Christ are nothing new under the sun, right? And definitely not new to God. But it seems that God can handle way more diversity and differences in thought than we can about a lot of things, myself included for sure. And without necessarily judging right or wrong, like God doesn't necessarily even judge right or wrong here, right? On a lot of things that we consider right and wrong, that I consider right or wrong. Anyway, this is a whole other topic, so I'm not going to go into it, but I'm going to leave it at this. We are not God. Thankfully, we are not God. So none of us are going to get it totally right. And that's okay, since being right is not the point. So what's the point? I know one of the points is to love God and to love our neighbors. And I think that is hard enough without all this other stuff and all the messiness that we have to deal with. It's hard enough to love God and love our neighbors. But it's in all this messiness that God uses us and transforms us and still wants us to represent God and God's love to each other and to the world. The church is wrestling and the world is watching. Let's pray that even with the messiness, God's love will still stand out. Lord, help us and have mercy on all of us. Amen. So on that note, let's move on to Sarah Hillbrand with an update from the Intentional All Church Gathering Task Force. Sarah, it's all yours.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you all today. And yeah, I just have an update on our task force, and the members are Dale Reed, Russer Saldana, myself, Heather Katie, Maddie Zimmerman, and Pastor Mandy. And we heard the critique from the congregation of not having a member who was over 65. So we're so grateful to share that James Hopp is joining the task force now. And so we will be slowing down our process. Yes, that's for sure, to incorporate James, and so grateful that he will be serving with us in this as well. So what we've been pondering and wrestling with on the behalf of the church is the essential purpose of our all church gatherings. And one resource we've been using in that is Priya Parker's principles, laid out in her book, The Art of Gathering, as well as a TED Talk she offered. And if any of you are familiar with On Being, she was also on Being with Krista Tippett just a couple weeks ago. And so that was a good discussion of her thoughts about gathering as well. And so here's what we've been learning as we've been thinking about all these things. So for one, is that all church gatherings are important to us and of course important to the life of the church. We've wondered about our standard off the rack format as we've thought of it, just our normal rhythms of gathering every week, what we do every time we gather. And we've come to realize that we have different understandings of the purpose of Sunday mornings, of praise and fellowship, Christian formation, encouragement, or support. And as we thought about those purposes, our group came up with 14 different purposes for our Sunday gatherings. Then we thought about how in order for our gatherings to be transformative, we need to clarify our purpose for gathered worship. This would be hard because it means we have to expect different things. So a couple possibilities we've had out of this so far is one purpose could be to celebrate and share God's holy presence in a set apart time and gracious space, and to inspire holy imagination and encourage faithful living. And then a second one would be to collectively experience God's holy presence, inspiring each other's holy imagination to see beyond our personal horizons, and to provide structure for honest communication that leads to personal transformation. We notice that these purposes leave a lot out and on what we've come to expect on a Sunday morning. And so our goal is to propose to the congregation how our all church worship gatherings could get people to connect more meaningfully and take risks and be changed by their experience. We were hoping by the end of the year to bring some proposals, but we know that might take a little longer. So in the coming days and weeks, in the meantime, we'd invite you to watch for more updates in the Grace News, as well as a broader survey coming out that includes a few questions from our task force, and we'd ask that you please respond to that. And also, you're invited to reach out to any member of the task force, and know that if you need our contact info, that our directory was just recently updated, and that's available on the members part of the website, and to invite you to pray as we continue in this process. So thank you all, and I'll pass it back to Amy.
Right. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Task Force, for all your work and continued work and prayers for this. We appreciate all of you. All right. I want to check in with you all right now. You know, how is everyone doing with all of this information, with all the town halls that we've had, with all the different discussions that we had? How is everyone doing? How are you feeling? We've talked a lot about your thoughts on the topic, but how are you feeling? Some of us are better at connecting to our feelings than others, and for good reason, and that's okay. I have a super hard time with my feelings as well, so I'm definitely in that boat. When I think about feelings, I think about being vulnerable, which can, and that word can elicit some various reactions, I'm sure. Our feelings, though, whether we are aware of them or not, often will determine how we communicate and how we impact others, and even how we impact our own bodies. So there's no judgment or good or bad or wrong. It's just, I'm just giving you an encouragement to be aware of what's going on inside of us. I like what Brene Brown says about vulnerability, you know, feelings and vulnerability. Vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up when you can't control the outcome. And I want to say to you, Grace family, thank you for showing up. There's so much that is out of our control that we don't know what's going to happen. And even some of our internally, it feels out of control sometimes, as well as externally. So I just want to say how much I appreciate that you are showing up and you are here and you are praying. So thank you. Right now, we're going to take a few minutes to acknowledge some of those feelings. And the way we're going to do that is I'm going to ask you to type in the chat your lament, your excitement, your frustration, your confusion, your hopes, and any other feelings you are experiencing about this topic. Go ahead and put that in the chat. And after a couple minutes, I will go ahead and end with a prayer from a book that I'm reading. So go ahead and take a moment of silence here, think, and and for those of you who are wondering how to type in the chat, if you're on a computer, you can just see that chat icon down there, and you can just type to everyone. If you don't have that chat icon, there's 3 dots that says more. You can click on those 3 dots and then select, I guess, chat or something. So just go ahead and see, hopefully you'll be able to do that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set the timer, and we'll just take this moment of silence and reading each other's chats. Thank you for sharing, everyone. It's always good to hear. Ann Boyd, I'm sorry, I missed your hand up. Did you have a question? Yes, John, can you unmute Ann?
Thanks. I just wanted to say thank you to Sarah for that that description, that articulation of the purposes of our all church meetings. And I'm wondering if you could send those to us later. You had like 2 things, right? And they were beautifully expressed. I'm wondering if you can send those out to the church, because I'd love to study those more. That's all. Thanks.
All right. And I wasn't looking at my own agenda, but I just want to close out this last time of just expression with this prayer. So let's pray. Let's embrace the reality that we are stumbling toward Jesus in the dark. Let's embrace the reality that we don't know the right questions, much less the right answers. Let's embrace the fact that God's kingdom is at stake, and that we need revelation from Jesus Christ in order to see what the kingdom of God is. Let's enter this journey with new eyes, eyes like a child. Let's pray like the blind man. Lord, help me to see. Lord, help us to see. In Jesus' name, amen. Just a quick reminder, please read the notes that we sent out from the town halls regarding all the different comments from the congregation. Keep having conversations, and most importantly, keep praying. Keep praying for God's guidance and wisdom and direction and transformation. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the business now, and we're going to have some discussions on things, and there will probably be some questions and comments. And how we're going to field those is we're going to use the hand raise option. So if you all go down to your screen where it says reactions, you will click on that. If you click on that, you have all these fun icons and stuff, but then there's the one on the bottom that says raise hand. If you click on that, your hand will go up, and then you will be in the order, called in the order that you raised your hand. And it makes it really easy for us to know who to call on. If you don't have that option, then feel free to just raise your live hand and we'll look for you as well. Or I guess Mark is saying you could check the yes button. Another way that you can do it is you can put your name in the chat. So either any of those things will work. We just don't want to miss you. Okay. So I'm going to
let me add, Amy, can I interrupt? Let me add, when you're done, you click it again to lower your hand so you don't stay in the queue. We just strongly encourage you to use the hand raise function in Zoom because it keeps things in order too.
All right. Thank you, John Boyd. Okay, let's, Pastor Mandy, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ann, and or Amy. I keep calling Amy Ann. It's hard to switch. Working with one church chair and then the other. So sorry about that, Amy. But thank you all for being here. Thanks for the encouragement and support. I really appreciate it. Council has asked me to just kind of share honestly where my sense is of this moment in our church. And so that is what I'll be doing. I definitely just want to acknowledge this is a season of conflict on many levels, and that's, I wish it weren't true for our church, but it is. And a pastoral question, especially as we've been in the midst of the pandemic, that I have been wrestling with is, should we kind of retreat and give one another a break from the challenges, kind of provide sanctuary, if you will, for one another? Or do we need to keep struggling together to walk forward together in this time, and really use this time to bear different fruits of what might be? And so I just want to let you know that I'm really have been wrestling with those two things in an ongoing manner as your pastor. There is a huge part of me that resonates with that song, Take Me Back to Church. Take me back to the place that I long to be with people who know me. But the Briscoe tweet has proved true in my ministry. And I have believed and I have behaved as if preaching was the organizing principle of the church. And I have seen that fail. And this has been really difficult for me to admit, and a hard thing for me to come to. Oh, I'm sorry. I do not mean to cry. Don't want to, I'm sorry. And it's been hard because I've invested so much into this thing that we call church. I've spent 5 years of time in my seminary education. I've spent 15 years in professional ministry, 14 of them being called to pastor here at Grace, originally as the pastor for preaching and worship. I spent 3 years getting my doctorate in leadership in the Christian tradition. And because of the generosity of my husband, he and I, my family, the three of us, have spent over $100,000 of our own funds so that I could lead better and preach better and interpret scriptures better and more faithfully. But here's my problem. The way that I have been trained and have been practicing ministry, the way that we have been doing ministry together isn't working in our world and in our context today. And that is really hard. And that is true whether we're in a pandemic or not. So I'm going to share a couple of graphs with you because there are things that I've been praying through and looking at and trying to deal with. The first one here is our attendance trend line from the beginning of 2015 until last week, actually last Sunday. And so you can see clearly that our participation, or how we've traditionally counted people in the church, we are seeing fewer and fewer people at church coming to what we think of as church. The second graph gets at this idea that COVID or not, we're in decline. And the blue, it kind of reads purple on your screen, but the blue line is the trend line of our attendance and how we were tracking with one another pre-pandemic, even before COVID hit, and we had to go in this scattered and gathered model of ministry. The green line is really at the heart of the pandemic, before things started to open up. Again, the trend line continued down, but it was slower. It was going down slower than it was before. The red line takes us from the beginning of 2015 until last week, which we can see as kind of splitting the difference between our decline that was happening pre-pandemic to the decline that we had were experiencing in the midst of the pandemic. Even though that year we had better participation and attendance than we had for a long time. This is not only our reality. This actually, an article just came out this week from the Religion News Service that was a study of small and mid-sized congregations. And this graph shows from 2020 2000 to 2020, the downward trend. We're not alone, friends, in trying to figure out what it looks like to be the church together. And so I was really struck as I was looking closely at these numbers of how kind of right on, especially when we look at like 2015 to 2020, going from 80 to 65 regular attendees a week, 2010, 105. Our numbers, when I look at our attendance and our engagement with church as we have been doing it, are right there with what's happening in our nation. And so when the pandemic hit, we had to make a decision. And there was going to be no right decision. But our organizing principle during that season was, how are we going to make sure that everyone in the church was cared for and connected? Because we didn't know what was going to happen, who was going to get sick, what we would be allowed to do, who'd be allowed to go to the grocery store. We just wanted to make sure that the church was cared for and connected. And so we jumped into the MFG model. And I know there's lots that has been lost in this. I feel it. in myself, in myself. I know that there's deep wrestling that's been going on, this idea that when all is stripped away, when our practice of what we understand to be the thing that carries our faith day in, day out, week in, week out is gone, what is church then? Where is that nourishment, that support, that community? I also know from a lot of you that there's been some deeply good news that has come out of these last year and a half. Real connections and deeper relationships are being made. There's a sense of welcome in some groups. There's been repentance in some groups, especially along with racial injustice, and some outreach and caring for other people in real powerful ways. And I know that this isn't true for everyone. I know that that's not true for everyone, but it is true. And I just feel like there has been in these last year and a half an embracing of something more, something bigger. And that's what my experience has been personally as well. I'm going to share a little story with you that kind of encapsulates it. Last month, I was invited personally by a kind of I wouldn't call her a friend yet, but someone who knows me, to attend an event that she was hosting on a Sunday morning. And I said, I'm a pastor. So like, I can't, I would love to come. I think it sounds fun. It sounds great, but I have obligations and responsibilities on Sunday morning. But what happened through that week was that it dawned on me, and I was reminded from others, that it was an outreach and engagement focus that Sunday. And that the whole point and part of the life of the church was actually to get out of the church and to reach out and engage with other people who were not going to come and show up at church. And so because of our team model of leadership and our MFGs, I was able actually to receive that invitation and go to this event that a woman named Darcy invited me to. And I walked in, and she says to the whole group of people, probably about 30 people, "You guys, Mandy's here." And she got someone to cover her church so that she could come and join us today. And then another woman comes up to me who I know, I'm almost done. I set my timer. Another woman came up to me that I've known casually for a while, who is a nurse and in ICU, and she's been really stressed because of all the COVID patients that she's been caring for. And she just shared her heart with me on that and her life. Another woman that I also kind of know casually, who has never referred to me as Pastor Mandy in the 2 years that I've interacted with her, was going around at this event and introducing me to other people as Pastor Mandy, which she'd never done before. And lo and behold, I learned that 2 women that were at this event live in the neighborhood of the church. And while they both said they didn't do church, they didn't want to go to church, when I told them about the food ministry, Fed, and when I told them about like starting to collect items for refugee families, they said, well, we can do that. We'll do that with you. And actually one of them came and volunteered yesterday with me at Fed. And I was able to meet and connect her with people both from the neighborhood and from our church that were there and serving the neighborhood. And so I felt guilty when I was going to this event on a Sunday morning. I really did. Like, I felt guilty that I was doing this other thing, but it was such a grace to me. And I was able to be such a grace to these other folks that it was just good. And so during this hard season, I don't know, but I just want to invite you all to just keep doing this thing that we've been talking about off and on, of practicing grace, and really stay committed to this, really seek earnestly. And that means kind of getting out of our comfort zone and seeking where God is at work. Gather intentionally. like plan and come together really to wrestle with scriptures, to wrestle with one another. And the other thing is to share joyfully. We have good news, even in the midst of all of this hard stuff. And so I really want to encourage you to continue to practice grace. We remember grace means unmerited favor. So if we can show unmerited favor to one another and to others, we'll be doing a really wonderful job living into our name. And then lastly, we are, as Sarah mentioned, sending out another report or another survey. And so if you would, you'll get this link. Actually, it was mailed to you already because I just got a ping in my email that said it was sent. But if you could take some time here in the next couple of weeks before 2 weeks from today, October 31st, to continue to give input so that we can continue to hear from the whole church, I'd really appreciate it. So again, thanks so much for being in ministry together, and I'll throw it back to Amy.
All right. Thank you, Pastor Mandy, for sharing your heart and for sharing the real struggle that you, and it sounds like the church in general, is going through, and I hear your disappointment and sadness. Thank you for sharing. Let's say a breath prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on us. All right, I'm going to hand it over to David Oliver for our facilities report. It's all yours, Dave.
Hello. Would someone please share the slides? It's too intimidating to see all your faces while I share all this. Okay. So in the spring, I shared kind of some minor or major, I guess, catastrophes that happened with the church building. And that continues to be the theme, keeping the water out. And so I'm just going to walk through where we're at with that, because it's really just like the big thing right now. So first of all, just to say we have done a lot, not as much as I wish we could have done over the summer, but there were 2 drains that go out to the sewer that were completely destroyed, that have been replaced. The boiler had been causing a lot of the water damage that we saw, and that was fixed. Same with some clogged gutters on the top of the church building. And we're getting those serviced semi-annually. And then some more work had been done on the stained glass windows. Yeah, wait, there's more good news. And then a bunch of the masonry work has been tackled as well. However, on the next slide, we'll see, right, it's kind of a little bit more detail about those fixes, right? So I wanted to, I'll just zoom out a bit before I, dig into these details. I wanted to kind of walk through kind of where we're at in terms of spending, because Gretchen's going to talk more about that, of course, after me. But we had some goals as a church in terms of spending. We took out we approved a loan. I'll get into more of that later, but just kind of wanted to walk through what we've had to do this year that is putting us in a position where we need to make some decisions, potentially some hard decisions. So we had an envelope assessment done, whereby we did some stress testing of water leak in some known problem areas. We took care of some tuck pointing work that was kind of like a low-hanging fruit to take care of. And some other kind of surface repairs. All of that work, including the assessment itself, was around $12,300. And that actually seems to have taken care of quite a lot. We've had some heavy rains, and knock on wood, we haven't seen many more issues with leaking water into the building. I mentioned the drains. There's about $3,000 worth of work taking care of those. On the next slide, again, the boiler was essentially like overfilling, if I understand it correctly. I am not an expert, but water was actually getting into the pipes when it should just be only steam. And so they're not built to contain liquid water. And so that was actually causing a lot of the water damage we were seeing. The bill for that was about $4,500. That's fixed. And again, those problem areas that we identified as being related to that, we're taken care of. We don't see any issues with that anymore. Next is the gutters. And so we are engaging a firm, a company to service both the Nina House as well as the church building itself. The costs for those are not totally known. We know it's going to be about $100 every time the Nina House is done. For the church, some amount more than that. They have to get up on really big ladders for that, which is what I did to clear the gutter and discover that this is what the problem was. So yeah, so that was fun. Cool. Of course, the story doesn't end there. There's more work to be done, right? So as part of that envelope assessment, they did a bunch of repairs, but then also said, before we go any further, here's about $17,500 worth of more things you should do to be in a better position long term in terms of water leaks. So this picture in the upper right is kind of the main problem area that they identified. They would need to do some pretty major work to the parapets there, and total bill for that area. And then I think there might have been one or two other areas. I can't remember exactly, but their total estimate for that was $17,500. And then one thing that was kind of missed in the envelope assessment was the bottom right picture there, the entryway on the west side of the church. We know that there's been some issues there. And so I asked actually to have them come back and do leak testing in that area, just to make sure we can get a better picture of kind of, let's do this all in one shot, and what will that cost us. So it's about $500 to do that test, and that should be scheduled in the coming week or two here. And I will provide more updates when that comes. And that's all just to keep the water out of the building, right? That's all kind of what we've been wrestling with facilities-wise this year. So what about other stuff we wanted to do? There was this big, I mentioned earlier, the AC. This was a big project that we took a vote on as a congregation to take a loan out for. Right, that is still not done. The estimate was around $23,880. There's an asterisk there, which I'll come to in the next slide. A lot of the proposed work that we wanted to do for the stained windows has been done. So like both of the lengthwise sides of the building on the north and the south are done, but the front of the church, the big picture of Jesus, and then also that's on the east side, and then on the west, the internal doors and a couple of windows there. So about $14,000 worth of work remains for the stained windows there. And so just a note here about the AC work. One thing is that there was about $20,000 estimated that was going to go into the AC unit replacement, and we're actually taking care of that in this other stuff that I've been talking about with the envelope assessment and the work that has been proposed for that. And so just to kind of bring it all into a summary here in the next slide. Yes. There's also external, extensive interior damage, right? So like there's a nice picture here, and that doesn't even really do it justice. There's a lot of really bad, peeling, and there is some suspicion about possibly having to deal with mold, right? And so there's a lot of other things that we just don't even know what's waiting for us in terms of like cost. So But to sort of summarize where a little bit more concrete things that we know, this is where we're at. We spent 19,800 total this year so far, and then above that we would reach about 37.8 if we don't do anything, if nothing new comes out of this new leak testing study on the front of the church. And so that's just the summary of kind of the total expenditures just on the water repairs so far. And then here, so I just kind of wanted to juxtapose that with what we had been thinking we would do, which is the AC unit replacements. And so if we replace that 20K estimate that we had for roof and parapet repair that we knew we needed to do for along with the AC unit repair, replace that with the 37.8 that we know we're in for this year, then that puts us roughly 17.8 over that total estimate. And I just wanted to sort of put that out there in front of everyone, that's kind of what we're looking at when we come to the place where we need to make a call about timing and how we want to approach the AC problem. Yeah, so next slide here. So we voted to take out a loan. And I actually can't remember. It's a revolving line of credit, if I understand correctly. And is it 60,000 was the limit? 70, 50, 70, 65, 70. Thanks, Steve. 70,000, right? So there's definitely room within that amount to work with to take care of all these items. And so for the you can read my bullet points here. But now that we're 18,000 over the estimate, is now the time to tap into the loan. It's one question. I didn't note this in my slides here, but winter is coming, and so as to quote someone, so AC may not be a top priority at the moment. We may have some time to dwell on this some more, but we do need to take care of the water leak issues to be sure before we get our first snows. Another question that we've been wrestling with, and I'm just guessing that a lot of people are wondering this too, that this is an old building. We're looking at how we do church. A couple of people have floated an idea about, what if we rented different space during, for some time. We're using it definitely every week for Fed. But just kind of wrestling with the bigger picture of, what are our values as a church? We read them earlier. Danny read them for us. And does spending this much money on our old building align with those values? So that's just something to kind of wrestle with, that I'm wrestling with. And then lastly, I was made aware that we can, that our church as it is today is not really all that great in terms of air exchange, so on the subject of COVID safety, but replacing the 2 existing AC units would help that, would take care of it, get us in a good place in the sanctuary, but not in the basement. And so that's still kind of a concern, not kind of, it is a concern, for especially considering the basement is what we use the most for Fed, especially, and so that would require a 3rd AC unit to take care of. Yeah, so those are, I just wanted to put these thoughts out there, and then to advance to the next slide, entertain questions, and I think we'll just follow the guidelines about raising your hand in Zoom and so on.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Task Force. Any questions at this point?
Yeah, that reminds me, before we move on, I would like to give a big, huge thank you to Steve Dawson, Marv, Bailey, and Pete Mueller, as well as Betsy Cisneros. I'm saying all their full names, you know who they are. But they've been just, I'm just a puppet. They are doing all the legwork, so I really appreciate them.
All right, looks like Dale, go ahead.
My question has to do with the COVID safety of the sanctuary. So replacing the AC equipment would recirculate air in the building, but then would that be filtered somehow or treated somehow, or would exterior air be coming in as fresh air to address the concerns for COVID safety? I don't know if you know of any additional information about that or not.
Can you unmute David Oliver, please?
Yeah, yes, they saw me flailing. So this was something that I hope it's okay to name names here. Jan raised it this just on this subject, and Pete Mueller is the expert that I would lean on for that. And can we unmute Pete?
So the putting a mechanical system in the sanctuary will help with airflow, but it doesn't do anything with cleaning the air. There are devices that can be added to kill the bacteria, be it COVID or anything else. The question is how much airflow these units are producing, how much air exchange, how many times an hour does that air change in the sanctuary? We can find that information out. But right now, as it stands, we are only looking at the units for the sanctuary. So there's nothing, David mentioned about adding the units for the basement or unit for the basement. So that could be done as well. The actual air, it's called an air scrubber, is not that expensive. I mean, under $1,000 per unit. And so that's not inhibitive to getting it put in there. So it's doable. But again, I really appreciated Dave's approach of, is this putting that amount of money into our building, is that aligned with our values? Does that answer, Dale?
All right, thanks, Pete and Dale. Go ahead, Eric.
Just a question, since we're in the process and almost sealed up the building in terms of getting the stained windows fixed, now we're trapping all the moisture inside too. Is that increase the need for our AC units to be in there, or is there, you know, because now all that air can just sit there and humidity levels can go up and more mold can grow and things like that if we're not recirculating? Is that an unintended consequence from our fixing the building?
Pete? John, I'm sorry, I don't know how to unmute people.
Yep. The beauty of our old building is it leaks like a sieve. It doesn't matter that we have great stained glass windows in there. So there's a lot of airflow going in that place. But I would not rely on that. There's no way to scientifically prove how much airflow is going in because of that. So having a mechanical system really is a way that you can scientifically prove that you're moving air and getting it cleaned out. If nothing happens over the winter and we're not using the building, of course, humidity over the winter is not an issue. It'll become an issue next summer again when, unless we choose to use the building and we have all of us breathing and perspiring in there, then it may be a little bit more of a thing. But again, there's not great insulation in that place. And so air is coming in all the time and being replaced just because of the leaks of it.
Bad insulation, yay. I do want to make a quick note. The Iglesia del Pacto congregation is meeting regularly in our sanctuary. They are a small group and it's just once a week. But thank you, Pete, for that.
Okay,
Chris.
go ahead, Chris.
I was wondering about the basement, if we needed to replace air conditioning in there, because it seems like our basement has never really needed air conditioning per se. Would it be a good idea to get, like those freestanding air filters you know, like a couple of them in the basement, you know, I mean, would that be just like more cost effective?
So I had a good discussion with a couple people yesterday, and for the volume of air that we have in the basement, we would need numerous of these devices to clean the air. And the other thing that came up in our discussions was this probably is not the last time that we're going to deal with some kind of virus issue. And so for a long run, long-term effect, it would make sense to put in a system. The other thing that these systems do is, just to refresh you guys' minds, these are heat pump systems. So they can actually produce heat as well as air conditioning. And the heat can be produced down to like 15 degrees outside. And so we don't need to rely on the boiler all the time. And by doing that, in the wintertime, we can do the heat, and it's also mechanically moving the air throughout the building there. So yes, Chris, we could put in air cleaners. I don't know in the long term if that's the most cost effective and easy thing, not easy, but most effective way to use it. Most of you guys have all been at Fed and you've seen the fans and the dehumidifiers and everything. Well, the times that I've been there, usually the dehumidifiers are already turned off, the fans are off, and it's like, okay, who's going to be responsible to plug these things in? So having a system that's already in place would make great sense for that, both in the short term and long term, but it's a money issue. And so that would be really the biggest one. Again, these units, they make a couple different kinds of air cleaners. One is like a HEPA filter where they have charcoal filters and whatnot, and they're quite large. I mean, like a humidifier size type thing. Other ones are an ionized filter, which use a blue light that kills the viruses. Same as what they use on airplanes and going through various things. You might have seen those. But those are about $1,000 a pop to do the really nice, effective ones. And so if we need 8 or 9 of those, well, we're almost to the price of putting in a complete heating, cooling system, as well as a cleaning system.
All right, thank you, Dave and Task Force and Pete, for that. I think that's all of our questions for this. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, so lots to think about. You will continue to get updates from facilities as we process this, and we will continue to process this together as well. Let's say a breath prayer. Creator God, please guide our way. Amen. All right, we're gonna head over to finances with Gretchen. Before we get there, I just want to say that we are running over, and I apologize for that. So I'm just hoping that you'll be able to stay a little bit later, and if not, we understand. So Gretchen, it's all yours.
Okay, here we are. Technology, how to get myself unmuted. So if you can share the slides, you guys are familiar with my saying it all belongs to God. Let's go to the next slide. What does that mean? Everything we have and our belongs to God for his kingdom and his glory. And where is it written? That big question. To love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And as Amy said earlier, that's hard to do without adding all the other stuff. So what does this all have to do with our finances? Those are the different areas I want to cover. And as part of my responsibility as treasurer, I'm supposed to remind everybody at least twice a year the different ways you can give. So here's your reminder. You can send a check or cash mail to the church office. You can give online. You can give by ACH via National Covenant Properties. those continue whether we are in person or not. Another part of my job as treasurer is just to report what's happening financially. So in the next slide, you'll see that those different ways of giving are showing up here. What we call offering plate is what's coming into the office. NCP, online. You can see that there are both people who are giving to the whole budget and those who are non-ECC. We also see that big chunk down there under the PPP loan forgiveness. That's what's making this year possible and not putting us into a hard spot. But without that, we've received about 87.5% of budget. Next slide. So this is where we're spending our money. You can see facilities is higher, surprise not. And staff, part of that is when we have to send in pension payments. It's almost exactly 100%. What we budgeted for the year is what we're spending for staff. So then the next slide shows Fed. So actually Fed, because Fed is embedded with all of the congregation's income and expense, is actually helping to cover some of our other church expenses, because you can see here that there haven't been food costs this year for Fed. So more income has come in than expenses for Fed, to a total of almost $9,000. Next. And outside of every year's budget that comes and goes, we have funds and projects that stay. They don't go away. So we have a building fund that is currently a negative. You can see watch care. People have been gracious and generous. Immigration is still sitting there waiting for the US to figure out what they're doing with immigration. CHIC didn't happen, so it's just sitting there. And there's the Fed fund reserves. So next slide. So what does this have to do with budgeting? How do we budget for 2022 when income received is less than expenses? There's two choices. You either increase the income or you cut expenses. It's a difference of about 15%. What about our cash reserves? We've always aimed to keep about one budget quarter of cash, which is about 86,000. There's an additional 17,000 that hasn't been spent that is available. So that we've been spending some of those cash reserved unused budget funds from previous years to cover some of those maintenance repairs. And there's 17,000 still available. But as we said, that building is being expensive right now. Next. So all of you on this call know that Paul and I did not plan to leave Chicago last year. And it happened. It was really obvious we were supposed to be here in Los Gatos. So this is my office. It was my old bedroom, is now where I am coming to you live from California. So I'm going to be completing my service as treasurer. It's not fair for me to be treasurer, because I'm not connected with the congregation. There's both the internal jobs of keeping the finances going, and there's the external of reporting to everybody and being involved in council. And when I'm not there with you, it doesn't work. So several people have been approached. Guess what? It's a big job. Many people do not want to do it. Not saying they don't want to, but we have to recognize that it takes time. That's part of why I can't do it from a distance. There is a group of people who are called outsourced accountants that have been formed. Actually, Sandy Norris started working with Steve Dawson originally way back when she went to Grace. If some of you have been around Grace a long time, you might recognize the name Sandy Norris. She was involved in starting this outsourced accountants who can do churches' bookkeeping. So both new churches and established churches are using their services. So it is an option for Grace to have outsourced accountants, but we'd have to budget for it. It's another expense. So what do we want to do? So next slide. there's a question. Do we want Sandy Norris of Counting House to do Grace's bookkeeping starting in January or not? And if not, who's going to do it? Knowing also that Betsy is going to be on sabbatical and she pays the regular bills coming into the church, which takes her at least one morning a week. So Sandy, not knowing our church other than it's small, gave us that ballpark figure of about 5 hours a month. This would change some of the treasurer and financial secretary duties because, oh, by the way, Eric is also finishing the end of his term. So we need a new financial secretary as of January. So it would have budget implications for Counting House to do it, but it would also relieve some of the stress on the treasurer and the financial secretary, would make their jobs less. But it's up to the congregation. So any other questions? We originally thought in council, oh, well, we could just have Outsourced do it. And then we thought, no, we want to be responsive to the congregation. We want you to have input and know why we were coming up with this. But questions for anything, whether it's outsourced accounting or other stuff. And there's Steve with his hand up. I think he's first, right? I can't tell. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just encourage that if we use Sandy, who I think is great, that we have a clear understanding of dual control. Just anybody who does financial work knows you need dual control. I didn't see that in the write-up.
Of course, of course. And that's part of why we've had a finance team doing Grace's work. And the person who pays the bills doesn't have access to being able to spend the money. Pays the bill, doesn't have access to the money coming in, which is why we have financial secretary. Yes, dual controls. Yes, Steve, we want to be financially responsible. Anything else? Questions? These are not easy issues we're bringing up, people. Council's been wrestling with them. We would love for them to just go away, but they're not going away. We have to deal with them. There's Pete.
So I like Dale's question there. What if we paid our volunteers now? Would they stay?
If you're asking me, I would say no, thank you. I'm doing this for a full-time job already. I'd like to do something else. But yeah, that is a good question, Pete. Thank you for your vote of confidence.
And Boyd.
Sorry, Ann, I couldn't see you.
Oh, I see. Anne was saying the T term is doubling, which 0 times 0 is 0. Okay, any other discussion, any other questions on this before I talk about the proposal again? Go ahead, Ann Boyd.
Are you, that was my question. The next slide. I'm wondering if you're asking for a vote. So I'll just be quiet now. Thank you.
Yeah. And before we go on to the vote, I just want to say a big thank you to Gretchen. She is in California. She's had a lot going on, and she has graciously and diligently been working for council on this. And we appreciate you so much. Thank you, Gretchen.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we're sad to see you go. All right, so let's, here's the proposal then on the table. The proposal is that we hire an outsourced accountant to take over some of the responsibilities for the treasurer and financial secretary. That will cost around $250 per month, which is about $3,000 a year. And that's our proposal, to hire a certified accountant.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Was this person a certified accountant or was it a bookkeeper? And Gretchen, are you certified accountant? Have we been using certified accountants or have we been using bookkeepers? Is there a difference if we go with a bookkeeper as compared to an accountant?
I tend to use the terms interchangeably, which is my non-being very specific with words. Sandy, I'm not sure if she's a CPA. I know she's had, no, she's not. She's had lots of training in accounting. I tend to think of the functions that are being done as bookkeeping, not accounting. Because although this person would be providing the council and the church with financial statements, they would not be making decisions for the church. There would still be a need for a treasurer to be on council to explain what those reports mean, but they wouldn't have to do the day-to-day making sure everything all lines up. And we've never used them before, so we really don't know. This is new. So I can't answer all your questions of what it means because I don't know yet.
All right, looks like we still have some hands up. Is that right, John?
Yeah, it looks like David.
Yeah, you mostly answered the question, which was we would still need to have a person, a representative on council whose title would be treasurer. And does that in itself cover dual control? No.
No.
Yeah. So then we would also need to have a financial secretary.
Yes.
In addition, so these are things that we'd have to that I'll talk about later, maybe nominating committee. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, we still need a financial secretary. We still need a treasurer. We would not need probably the other two people, I'm not sure, that are on the finance team. The hope, though, is that the job for the treasurer at the church would be a lot less than what it's been. Eric.
How would annual, when we do audits and stuff, would that be included in part of that, or is that still a separate thing that would have to happen?
You mean which part did you mean? That's can be really specific.
When we usually do an annual audit to make sure that our books are all in order and all of that.
You always want to do an audit, no matter who does your books. You want to double check things. That's actually something I do every month when I see the reports coming in. I'm going through the lines, just sort of, does this make sense? Does this make sense? Does that make sense? And you're right, we would do an audit every year.
So that would be separate from this entire, that's completely separate from doing the outsourcing.
Completely separate. I think so. I think I understand your question. Yeah, I think I understand your question. Let's talk this week at the finance team, Eric.
Okay.
Because I think you're asking more really specifics, and we can work that out. Yeah. Andrea?
So I guess they're just gonna clarify that she's Sandy, is that her name?
Yeah.
She's probably highly trained in QuickBooks and would use QuickBooks as the software. Okay.
Yes. So in that way, we would be working like the good system that you set up with QuickBooks, where the treasurer and the accountant can see the same books. Yeah. Which helps with that dual control.
And then Betsy uses QuickBooks to pay bills.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And she would do some of those still, but not most of them. Most of them, the certified accountant would be able to pay.
Oh, great. Okay.
Jan Hugh brought a question in the chat, which is, should we be giving reparations to former hardworking treasurers? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And a lot of know-how and skill too.
All right.
Okay.
Are we ready for the vote? Let me read the proposal one more time. The council would propose hiring a certified accountant to outsource the church's bookkeeping, annual giving reports, monthly financial reports for council, bill paying, and payroll. The church will continue to elect a treasurer and financial secretary according to our constitution and bylaws. The treasurer, in regular communication with the accountant, will oversee all accounts and disbursements, lead budgeting process, and guide financial decision-making. The financial secretary will continue to receive and oversee recording of all contributions to the church. So, is there any more discussion and question? And if not, I'd like to entertain a motion regarding the proposal. So is this when we do the poll?
Eric has his hand up and so does Ann Boyd.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Just a quick question. Can you post that in the chat or something? Because by the time you were done reading, I was like, what? Wait, huh?
Yep, I'm going to do it. Hold on.
Thanks.
It's the same language that was sent out just over a week ago in the proposal. Just if you have that, it's the same one that's in that doc.
All right, I'm going to send it out to everyone right now. Okay, Jan, go ahead. Hold on a second, we have to unmute you. Hey, John, can you unmute?
Steve, we can't hear you. Go ahead and try to unmute again. There you go.
I hear. Okay. I would suggest replacing the term certified accountant with accounting service, because a certified accountant usually audits things, and an audit normally in business is an auditor will come in and say, give me everything you've got for July 26th, if that's a business day. And then he would look at all the entries in the ledger, all the, everything that went on that day to see if it lines up with what the books say should be. And he may do another day or two over the year. A certified accountant is a more specialized person that then would do bookkeeping. So if we say we should hire a certified accountant to do our bookkeeping, that probably would mean something different than a person, an accounting service, which may or may not be certified to come in and do our bookkeeping on a daily basis or monthly or weekly or whenever, quarterly, whatever it would require. We may want a certified accountant to audit our books and make sure that everything is on the up and up, and that person would not do every day to make sure, an audit to make sure that every day everything happened perfectly, but would come in and pick random days through the year to make sure that everything happened perfectly on that day. And on the basis of that, would certify the books as correct. So that's all I have.
Okay, so what you're saying is to change it from certified accountant to hiring an accounting service. Wait, sorry, Steve, you're talking, but you're muted.
Okay, just to take out the requirement that it be a CPA or a CPA firm to do this work. I don't know how that would be expressed in the in the language of the motion, but I don't think to put certified accountant in this language would be necessary to get what we want, but it may limit us.
All right, so Gretchen is saying something. Oh, yes, okay. So do I just change that to hire an accounting service? Or just hire an accountant?
Not accountants, I would say accounting service.
Okay, all right, that's done. Okay, you moved, and great, thanks, Anne. we moved to change the language and she seconded it and I changed it. So you guys want it back in there so you can read it? Let's,
Okay, John tells me, what don't you want me to move, John? John's in the other room. He's instructing me how to do this. But I think what we have to do, now that we've amended the language, I think we
Yes.
need somebody, just a
I need to-
normal person, to make a motion that we accept this. I'm normal. I move that we accept this as proposed with this wording, accounting service. That's my motion.
All right. And okay, I gotta figure out how to say this thing here. I entertain a motion. All in favor? Is this when we do the poll?
I thought, yeah, that we were going to use a poll for voting on this.
Yes, so can we do that?
And yes, we can. I just want to
Okay.
make sure everyone understands. We're not voting on an amendment to the language. We're voting on the motion with the amended language. Okay,
Correct.
so this is the whole thing all at once. That's all I was saying. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to put up a poll now. It doesn't have the detailed language. It just says the motion about the accounting service. Okay, but it's the one that's in chat. So you should see the poll up. Please vote on that. This will be our official voting.
All right. Oh, wait, hold on. Lori Bailey. Wait, what's going on with the hands for Dale and Lori? I see hands coming up. John.
When an issue with this, and it's maybe the same thing for Lori, when there's two of us sharing the same computer, we only get one vote.
That's a legitimate question. It's a limitation of Zoom. Sorry. We can, if it's
You can raise hands.
if
that's
it's a
like all in
concern,
favor.
if it's a concern, we can do it in a different way. Or if a split vote would like to be registered, we can do that.
If it's overwhelming favor and is likely not an issue, then that would be fine. If it's contentious or is close, then I would suggest that we have something that's more precise.
That's great. Totally. Should we do that on this vote? What's the consensus?
Well, let's hear what Lori has to say first. Lori, did you have a question? Can you unmute Lori?
I guess this is something that I anticipated ahead of time. It's like this is something we need to fix because we'll have votes coming up. We need to be able to have everyone who's on a Zoom call be able to vote.
Yes. Okay, it looks like here that it's pretty unanimous at the time right now. So we'll get it ready for the next one if everyone is okay with that.
So has everyone voted? Like I know it's limited to the one per screen. Right now it's 100%, 27 out of 27 pictures or squares that have logged on to Zoom have voted 100% yay to the proposal, 0% nay. No one has abstained.
Is anyone concerned with the validity of this voting mechanism? Because we don't want what otherwise looks like consensus to be under a shadow here. I guess I'd really just like to say any concerns at all, voice them now. Okay, we'll take this as an official result.
Okay. So the way to do that is to say like motion passed, right?
I think you say that as chair, yes.
Yes, motion has passed. Cool.
Cool.
All right, thank you all.
I had one last thing, Amy.
Yes, Gretchen?
I would like to share both the screen with the words and then the song that Ann Boyd graciously, I can't even talk, sang for us. It's a song that came to my mind when I was preparing this and I just couldn't get it out of my mind. So I'm taking it that the Lord wants us to hear this. So if you could play that song right now and actually have the words up so everybody can see it, that would be wonderful.
She's playing the piano.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2. When life for us is full of comfort, when wealth and plenty overflow, Lord, make us truly see our neighbors, their pain and need bring us to know. Families that wander lost and homeless, youth filled with hatred and despair, teach us to understand their anger, help us to act your loving care. When strife and turmoil rage around us, when right and right in conflict stand, save us, O God, from easy answers that do not meet your truth's demand. Lord, make us ask deep probing questions, ponder our motives, search our soul, teach us to live by love and justice, striving to make creation whole.
Beautiful. That was beautiful. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Gretchen. Okay. Let's go on to the election of the Grace Nominating Committee. David Alver.
Hello again. So this time of year, every year, we have to accept a body of decision makers to help us out with filling in the council. It's the nomination committee. And so we need to vote on it, right? So if somebody could share that. Here's our slate of folks we would like to see take this on. Each of these people have graciously agreed to serve. So don't worry, this is not a surprise to any of them. So yeah, the next thing I would do is entertain any kind of discussion or questions about the folks we see here. Oftentimes you might hear a motion to accept the slate of all of them, or just one, or however you see fit. So take a look at this list. They'll be making decisions, important ones, about given our just completed vote about the next treasurer and financial secretary. So they'll have a big job in front of them. So yes, any questions or conversation about this list of folks?
For the dating, for the voting.
All right, I'd like to entertain a motion regarding the proposal to accept this slate for the nominating committee. Oh, wait a second. Are we doing a poll again? We got a second. Okay. Tell me out, John. Are we doing another poll or are we just going to say yay and nay?
Yes, we're doing a poll if people are continue to be comfortable with that voting mechanism.
Okay. Go ahead. Do the poll. Are we? I'm assuming we're all good with that. If you have more than one person on your screen and you would like to count both votes, go ahead and put it in the chat and say 2 for the Dawsons, 2 for the Weifelmans. All right. I think we're good. Do we have to go the full time?
Any other votes coming in or are we done?
No, it says it's 100%. Okay, the motion is passed. Thank you, Kurt, JP, Janice, and Desiree. Thank you. All right. Let's move on to the proposal of the name change. Pastor Mandy.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody again. Thanks for hanging in there with us. We're about 15 minutes over the time we were hoping, but we just have a couple more things and should be out of here in the next 5 or 10 minutes. So in the spring, we as council came to you with a question and did a survey about if we should change our name specifically by taking evangelical out of it. We offered a couple possibilities. One would be just to take the name evangelical just out of our public facing communications, our signs, website, that kind of stuff, and maintain it as our official name. The other was we could take it out of our official name and go through the process, which means changing our constitution, and also changing all of our documents, registered documents with the state, and all of that kind of stuff. And so the survey results, we also explored a little bit, like, should we just do a whole new name? But there was not a whole lot of support for that. Most of the interest came in just removing evangelical. And actually 75% of the church said definitely yes, or yes, but I don't feel strongly about it, about removing the name evangelical from our public facing signage, documentation, all that kind of stuff, but keeping it as our official name. Some of the people who voted that they definitely did not want to change that, the blue or the red colors, they did not want to take evangelical out. A lot of the reasons were because it just didn't feel like people picked a church based on the name on the sign or the name that was put out. Others were concerned about that it would kind of be duplicitous, that it would be, we're trying to communicate one thing but not say the truth that we are an evangelical covenant church. A few others mentioned that they didn't want that to impact our relationship with the ECC as our denomination, which it will not or does not. And so because of that, the council just came back with this proposal that we shall maintain Grace Evangelical Covenant Church as our official name in our constitution and incorporation, while using Grace Covenant Church on all public facing materials, including but not limited to logos, signs, print materials, and online presence, and to file Grace Covenant Church as an assumed name with the state of Illinois. Steve Dawson did some research and discovered that Grace Covenant Church is actually not registered with the state by anyone else. And so we can actually, with a every 5-year renewal, take that name as an assumed name for ourselves to make sure that no other churches who want to do so could do that. Of course, churches are terrible about registering things. So there will be other Grace Covenant churches, but thanks to Steve for doing that. So this is the proposal before you.
Are there any discussions and questions?
Yeah, I had I raised my own hand and unmuted myself. So I have one question about the filing the assumed name. This doesn't, is this like bank accounts and checking, or is that all the official stuff? This is really just sort of laying claim to the use of that in a public place. It's even the filing it is still essentially just for the public facing stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Steve, do you want to chime in? Steve Dawson, if you have any more insight into that than me.
Yeah, in the past, there actually have been other Grace Covenant churches. There are none that currently have a tie to the name. So this would just allow us the option in the future, if ever we wanted to drop it officially, we would still have it protected.
All right, looks like Eric and Troy have hands up too. Go ahead, Eric.
Question, because I know that the survey was done with from within the church, but since we're a community church, has anybody looked at the community to find out what this is an issue for them? Are they not coming to our church because we're an evangelical? Do they care? Because it seems like what we do in the community is more important than what our name is. And if we're a church that is actively meeting the needs and serving the community, I don't think they care what the name of our church is. But if we're not, changing the name isn't going to do anything other than, for ourselves. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter what we think the issue is. It matters who we're trying to serve and whether they're coming in because of that name.
That's a good point. Troy?
Just wanted to circle back to John's question. The short answer is yes, your interpretation is correct. It would, it isn't like we're registering a new official name. It's just that we reserve the right, like if people write a check to Grace Covenant, then it would go to our bank account. So it's kind of a public thing, basically, the assumed name.
Yeah, it's like an AKA sort of thing, huh?
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks like in the chat, there's some talk going on there. Oh, Milton says, trust me, people care. Andrea says, doing business as Grace Covenant Church, like a DBA. I don't know what that means, but she does. And if it gives any insight to this question, Matt was hesitant to visit Grace in the first place because of the word evangelical being in the church name. I think there's going to be a lot of different perspectives, opinions about that. Dale, go ahead. Can somebody
There, is that better? Okay.
Yeah.
I just posted in the chat. I'm in favor of removing evangelical from the public facing one because I think it could be an obstacle to some people. I do identify myself as an evangelical, though when I see in the news, I'm concerned about the association that is attached to. So in 1 Corinthians 9:22, I become all things to all people so that by all possible means I might save some.
Any more discussion?
I just wanted to answer Eric's question, is that no, we did not extensively survey the neighborhood. This is kind of just coming from taking a broader temperature of how the word evangelical is perceived in our culture.
All right, if there, a few more seconds, any more questions, comments, concerns, discussion? All right, I would like to entertain a motion to,
Amy, Jan Huber, and Sue Brown have their hand up.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just a question of how to proceed with this, because this one does sound like there's disagreement. Do we answer the poll and put it in the chat, or are we double voting like good Chicagoans when we do that?
Yeah, let me comment. If we could, these are just my opinions. I'm really, the bottom line is we want to take an accurate vote, and we're gonna take an accurate vote no matter what. So don't anybody worry about that. If we could try the poll and see, whether we're not within spitting distance of, confusion on that. Or Dale has whipped up in his spare time, has whipped up a Google form here that he sent me a link, so we could go straight to that, which would allow everyone. But I still want to emphasize, those of you who are sharing a computer, you're still going to have to do this twice. So if you're sharing a computer, there's a potential for confusion no matter what we do. So blame COVID. You're going to have to be careful about whether you're voting twice, whether we do it with chat, whether we do it with the poll, whether we do it with the Google form. But for my sake, those are the options. We could also just show hands and count that way. That's entirely possible. That would be the lowest tech way to do it. I think it's probably up to the will of the people and Amy to kind of call what kind of mechanism we want to do, but we're gonna get an accurate vote no matter what we do.
I would say if everybody is okay with it, that we do the poll. Oh, Dale wants to do hands. Okay, we can do hands. Then what?
Okay, this means everyone needs to turn their camera on. There are some folks who don't have cameras on, and I don't know if those folks are even away from their machines.
Well, yeah. The other thing is, let's see here. I just want to see.
I'm not objecting. I'm just saying an implication of it. We can do hands on screen.
Right.
But this is mostly like what it would be like if we were sitting in the in the sanctuary.
Yeah.
But don't go to the bathroom. I guess, if you go to the bathroom when we vote, you're not counted. And that's not on us.
All right. I'm looking at Metzley Pikes and Don Olson are not on screen. So I'm wondering if they're not able to, or here we go.
I'm going to stop this sharing of the slide because that'll make it easier to view the gallery.
Yep. All right. So it looks like we will go ahead and do it by hand. Are the Pikes there?
Troy is asking to say something.
If we do the poll, the thing is, it only applies if the two people on the same screen disagree with each other.
Yeah.
Right? So if in your household, if you disagree with each other and one person is voting one way, then just send a message in the chat to John, just to John, because he's the vote tabulator, right? And say, we disagree. So one person's voting one way and one person's voting the other way. Otherwise, if you're both voting the same way, the poll can work.
Yes, I love the way you're thinking, Troy. The problem is it might be 2 no's and 2 yeses if they agree, and that would change the weighting. So I think let's go. I guess I'm liking the idea of going old school. Raise your hand. Make sure both people, you may have people in the room with you that we cannot see. The point is we have to see you on the screen. So I won't name any names, but there's some of you we can hardly see your faces. So make sure that we see the people who are voting on screen if we're going to vote this way.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. I mean, you could also, not to complicate things, but you can also use your emoji hand too, if you don't want to put your face in there.
And we're going to get a moment where we're saying the vote is now, and I'm going to take a screenshot of this so that we have a record of it. Okay.
All right. So I'm going to entertain a motion that we maintain, that we shall maintain Grace Evangelical Covenant Church as our official name in our Constitution and incorporation, while using Grace Covenant Church on all public facing materials, including but not limited to logos, signs, posts, print materials, and online presence, and to file Grace Covenant Church as an assumed name with the state of Illinois. Gretchen seconds, thank you. All in favor?
Raise one hand visibly. We want to see one visible hand per person for voting. Okay, the votes are going to happen now. Okay, now you can do the other side.
Okay, all opposed? Oh, I gotta turn mine off. Remember to lower your hands if you're not voting on this.
Wait, hold
one.
on. I'll keep them up. If you're opposed, these are the nay votes. Hold
Right,
them up.
these are the nay votes, right? So if you had your emoji hand up last time, you got to take it down for the nay vote.
Yeah, we're not doing it on emojis at all. It's your physical hand in the real world on video.
Oh,
The
okay.
nay vote, hold on. I have not taken the camera shot yet. So the vote, if you were voting nay on this, hold your hand up now. Okay, done. And then abstain. I think you want to ask about abstain.
Yes. Any abstaining?
Okay, I'm going to vote. Okay, we got all three of those.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, so what is it?
It's,
Has passed?
yeah, I could actually count them if you want, but it was, I think everybody saw it was overwhelmingly yes.
Okay, so the motion is passed. Thank you.
We'll in the minutes, we'll make sure we do a count of all those so that the number is actually represented. Or I could do it now if you want us to wait.
And we're going to ask for new business. I don't think we need to do that, actually. We can do it later for
okay.
When we, yeah. Any new business? From anybody? Give it a few minutes or seconds.
I have a new business.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
So Dave mentioned it very briefly in his report, but we have many thousands of dollars to spend on our building in order to both keep it functional and to increase its safety during this COVID time, which again, we've talked about, this is not going to be the last time that we need to have safe air cleaning in our building here. My proposal or my question is, can we look into other facilities that we may share, rent, use for our once a month, twice a month gatherings and not have to, at this point, deal with putting in so much money into our building to make it safe just for this group here to meet so that we have the ability to meet. In conjunction with that, there are a percentage of people in our congregation that are compromised, and we should put in as much, if not more, effort in keeping them included in however we are doing church. And so if they're not able to meet with us physically, well, how do we then keep them incorporated into the rest of the church? So two things: use another facility that already is, or that we help that is more modernized, that we help keep COVID safe. And two, make sure that everybody in our congregation is included.
All right, thanks, Pete. Our secretary, wonderful Kim Zimmerman, will take that down and add it to our new business. Thank you. Eric or Bonnie, one of you, you have your hands up.
Yes. Then a question is, I mean, I don't know if this is where I would put in a proposal or just is it coming up for a conversation, but I mean, we've talked back and forth, you know, depending on who you're talking to and opinions in our small groups, things like that. Questions about what direction we actually want to go with the church. Are we planning to reopen or not? So I'd like to put either a proposal out or a recommendation or something. I can throw it in chat if you want, that just either defines ultimately that we're, as a church, that we're taking steps toward getting the congregation, getting the sanctuary ready for whenever it happens to be that we are able to meet again. I'm going to throw this out there in the chat because otherwise it took me too long to labor over it.
So this is what you want us to add for our new business.
Well, I'm looking, you can read, I don't know if this is considered a proposal or if this is just a topic, but what I'd like to do is at least get it officially on record that we want to move in a direction or not, if we're saying we don't want to do this at all, of getting the church ready so that when we can go back, things are in place. I don't want to come to say, yes, we want to meet again. Oh, and we haven't put any implementation in for air circulation or say any kind of safety things. So, oh, we'd like to meet, but we can't. But it gives the intent that we desire to meet again in the congregation. And this is not to say that I'm getting rid of MFGs. This is just for corporate worship. That's my comment underneath. I think they both have a place, but that I think that MFGs only are not the solution for the continuation of our church.
All right, so I see your comments in the chat. We'll consider that for new business then. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Milton? Hold on a second. We gotta, yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so I attend North Park Covenant every Sunday for a 12-step meeting. And I know that part of the money that we do in our 7th tradition, which states that each AA group is self-supporting, declining outside contributions. Money that we collect, we also give to North Park Covenant for using that space. And I'm wondering if we can have a 12-step meetings at Grace to also raise revenue to offset some of this cost. They don't seem to have a problem with filtration. I go to Starbucks every day and, people come in there, they wear masks. They don't seem to have a problem with gathering up in there. But my main concern is, can we begin to have 12-step meetings there? The people that attend there, they are truly seeking God. They're truly, living in a spiritual way. And many hundreds of thousands of meetings take places in churches, and it gives revenue to the church. And I'm wondering if we can take a look at that and implement that at Grace.
Okay, we will add that to new business as well. Okay, thank you, Pete, Eric, and Milton. Thank you for your comments and additions. Anything else to add to new business? Going once? Going twice? Oh, what do we do with new business? So what's going to happen is we will take that new business to our next council meeting, And then we will figure out what we need to do in order to either get more input about it, or maybe put together a proposal, or, you know, we're going to decide what to do further with some of what it is that you want us to look into. Anything else about that? Pastor Mandy, is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple things just off the top of my head. One is that, sorry, my dog is going crazy. One is that, Eric, that question that's coming out in the survey that should be in your email box, and that we're going to give you a link to, also to all the links of the meeting here in a minute, might get at some of that, of what you're asking, actually. So that's coming, because we heard that from you at the town hall meeting. And so that's included in the survey that's coming out. Love the idea, Milton. We have an intentional process to go through, and we are happy to, for smaller groups, and if they can maintain the COVID practices that we have, we are happy to welcome other groups. And so I'd encourage you to connect with the church office. And Betsy has all of that kind of process that could happen. So those are a couple quick things.
Yeah, so for new business, it's not about resolving it today because we don't have the time. And some of it may need more research into it. So new business means, what is it that you all want us to look into for the future council discussion, and then bring it back to you all. We will have okay, so any more new business? No. Okay, feel free to, if something jumps up at you, you can also contact me later, or any council member. Please look for a document that has all the links that you've seen here, including the song, the tweets, the proposals, everything. And there will also be so Tirza Reed sent us a reflection that is very, very heartwarming, about her being raised in the church, and also as a young woman now out of the church, and her relationship with others outside of the church, what the church has meant to her. And so that will also be in the document, a link to Tirza's video to the church community. So be looking for that document. You can revisit any of the links that you want.
And I just shared a link to the document with links in the chat, so that you can go ahead and click on that. And when we're done, it's already opened and you can just have a ball.
Yes. And that also has our latest survey that Pastor Manny was talking about, where it can be quite in depth in terms of how you want to answer these questions about our future gatherings. So please answer those, and we are looking forward to hearing from you. I am going to close in prayer, and it's a prayer that's also from the book that that our MFG is using for Jonah, called Relentless Love. And this prayer was from the funeral service of Eugene Peterson. Leif Peterson, his son, had said that his father had only one sermon, and it was this: God loves you, he's on your side, he's coming after you, and he's relentless. Let's pray. Oh Lord God of Jonah, thank you that you love us so much that you pursue us. Your goodness and mercy pursue us all the days of our life. May we know this for ourselves, and may we embrace your call to join you in pursuing others, even the most undeserving, with your great love. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Again, I apologize for the length of it, and I move to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second? All in favor? Blessings on your week, and thank you for being here, everyone. Love to you all. Why don't we unmute it for a second, John? And we could just, everybody say bye.
There we go. All right, bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work. Bye.
Thanks very much. Love you. Love you all.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Great job, Ann and John Boyd, in your music.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
That was
Thank you.
beautiful.
It's fun to play with Ann.
Well, partial to her.
Oh yeah, I don't know. She's my favorite vocalist.
Well, blessings,
talking about
everybody.
you.
Yeah. Thanks,
Nice
Ann.
job, Ann. Nice
Bye.
job, and John. Yeah.
Bye. Blessings to share. Thank you. Amy, thank you very much. Amy,
Yeah,
you
thanks
did
a
great
million.
Thank you,
job.
Amy. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you so much,
You're
John, too, for all that you did to make it happen, and really appreciate.
Yeah,
Appreciate you guys.
as long as it doesn't have to be Hollywood smooth. It's
Nope.
easy.
We never. We are far from Hollywood, honey.
This is this is more like cinema verite documentary.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you guys. Blessings.
Yep. See ya.
Yep.
Bye, guys.
Mandy and John, can you hang on for just a second?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. See y'all later.
Bye.
Bye, Pikes. Okay, so are we going to be able to like keep the chat? Can we make a copy of all
Yeah,
that?
it's part of the recording, I believe. And by the way, we are still recording.
Oh, okay.
I can stop it. Stop.
Is it stopped?